brands are struggling to contain a crisis. This factory's boss is frantically working to ensure that they can keep supplying milk to Australian homes.
We didn't know whether or not we would be able to get resins for our bottles so that we could bottle the milk from our farmers. And if we haven't got a container to give it to a consumer, there's little point in actually making the milk.
Norco is just one food brand that is battling supply shocks on resin. From chocolate wrappers to bottles of moisturiser, the production of everyday items are under threat. This factory is making squeezy containers for the cosmetics industry from mostly imported materials.
We are seeing suppliers declare force majeure, and we're really seeing that out of Asia. Plastic producers are reserving what production they have available for the contract customers, and people like ourselves who used to buy on spot are finding it very, very difficult to get material.
Iran's effective blockade of the Strait of Hormuz is upending the plastic supply chain that is dependent on a byproduct of oil.
Raw material can't get to the various refineries. And if they can't get to the refineries, then the refineries can't refine and turn back into plastics.
I expect to see a further reduction in available resin material, and I also expect to see prices continue to climb while the war in the Middle East continues to rage on.
In some cases, plastic inflation is already here. Both Coles and Woolworths have confirmed that they've raised the price of homebrand milk due to higher costs, including packaging.
This currently supplies our 2-litre Woolworths bottles.
This company is battling to ensure that it can keep making hundreds of thousands of milk containers for the supermarkets.
Literally my whole day is consumed of resin meetings and trying to establish whether we're going to be able to continue producing for the next coming week.
If the war continues, if supply doesn't miraculously start flowing, then there is a likelihood that we will run out of certain raw materials.
And so if you get to that stage where the war continues, supply remains constricted, what choices would you make as a business on what to stop making?
It's really hard, for a company like us to say, well, we should make that versus make that. So I think ultimately, that will be a decision for government.
The federal government says that it's working with manufacturers on this issue. It could use its newly expanded underwriting powers to buy resin from overseas refineries. Locally, options are limited.
Viva's Geelong refinery is Australia's only supplier of one crucial material, polypropylene, and local supply of another disappeared a few years ago.
When Qenos shut down in 2024, our local supply chain of polyethylene disappeared. Consumers need to understand that making in Australia has a higher price tag than making in countries like China or Vietnam or Thailand or Indonesia.
PAC's boss is hoping that the situation forces Australia to mandate more recycled product.
If you think about the current crisis and you think about sovereign capability, actually Australia has got great sovereign capability on recycling.
PAC's plastic recycling joint venture with Cleanaway is losing cash.
Recycling costs a lot more than a virgin raw material. But the bigger question is, well, what's the real cost of actually taking that stuff and dumping it into landfill? What we don't have is legislation that creates the demand.
Legislation has been flagged for years. Nestle, which also needs resin for its chocolate wrappers, is one of the major brands that is calling for renewed focus on the circular economy. But not all companies are convinced.
We certainly support recycled resin, however, that comes at a considerably higher cost than even the higher costs that we're seeing today based on the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And I just don't think the average Australian think that's a fair deal for them.
Norco has told its customers that the price of milk is going up by 10 to 20 cents a bottle.
We estimate the costs of hyperinflation just on diesel and plastics in our business to be about $1.6 million per month.
Michael says that they've locked in supply of resin to September.
I don't see too much hope in the next 3 to 4 months of different pricing on resins. But after that, let's hope that we do have some form of normality.
Optimism in a very uncertain world.
The Environment Minister is Murray Watt. He joined me earlier. Welcome. Dairy Co-op Norco has told the business it's worried it won't be able to bottle its milk come September. Do you accept Australia's plastics industry is in structural crisis?
Well, as a government, we're certainly aware that the impact on plastics is one of the consequences we're seeing from the global fuel shortage right now. I actually spoke with the CEO of Norco myself last week, and he outlined the situation that they're facing, particularly around the increasing price of plastics that they require for manufacturing those milk bottles that we all take advantage of. I think it's fair to say that we're not seeing the same levels of shortages when it comes to plastics as we have seen, for example, with fuel, petrol and diesel. But that's not to say that if this crisis continues, that we wouldn't see very serious impacts on plastic supplies and prices into the country.
Would the federal government be open to using its new powers to underwrite oil cargoes to also underwrite food-grade resins that go into packaging?
Yeah, and in fact, the way we designed that methodology for underwriting did allow for similar underwriting to occur of plastic resins and other products as well. Obviously, most of the attention went to fuel and diesel suppliers, understandably, but the opportunity to use that mechanism is much broader than just that and could apply to plastics as well.
How quickly could the federal government move to do just that?
Well, we're certainly open to working with manufacturers about this. My colleague Tim Ayres, as the Industry Minister, has been in regular contact with manufacturers who are relying on plastics about these kinds of issues. My understanding, in fact, is that there are some manufacturers who are seriously looking at taking advantage of that right now.
Would Australia's packaging sector be less vulnerable to the supply shocks we have seen since the war broke out if the government had mandated amounts of recycled material in plastics?
Well, this is certainly something that we're working with industry on right now. This is something that began under my predecessor, Tanya Plibersek, and I've taken up now as the Environment Minister. We've certainly heard the calls from plastics recyclers that they want to see a mandated content level of recycled plastic. We do need to work through a range of issues around that, such as exactly what kind of products that recycled plastic could be used for, what the cost would be to manufacturers and consumers, but we continue to have very productive discussions with plastics recyclers and manufacturers right up until today. I think this whole fuel crisis has been a wake-up call for the country about the need to ensure that we do have strong sovereign capability. And of course, if we were to move to greater recycling levels of plastics, there would of course be very strong environmental benefits that I'm interested in as the Environment Minister, but also very strong economic benefits as well by making us more resilient for these kind of global shortages that we might see in the future.
The voluntary targets currently in place haven't been met for many years. Why hasn't the government moved earlier on mandating recycled amounts?
Yeah, well, I understand that many people are supportive of moving towards these kind of recycling measures. We do need to recognise, though, that it would have potential consequences, whether it be for consumers or manufacturers as well. And that's what we've been trying to nail down, is what those cost impacts would be. As I say, what kind of products this could be used for and couldn't be used for. It's a little bit more complicated than it may seem at first blush.
We've had recyclers like RedCycle collapse, and now the financial reports of other recyclers, including Raphael Jaminder's Pact, show they're running at a loss. Is inaction risking Australia's recycling industry?
Well, again, I've certainly heard the calls through direct meetings that I've had with Mr Jaminder and a range of other bodies in this industry that some of the recycling companies are under severe financial pressure. And that's because of a couple of things about some of the difficulties at times that they have in sourcing the plastic that they then want to recycle, but also sometimes a lack of demand for recycled plastic. I guess why things are a little bit different now in the wake of this global fuel shortage is that historically importing virgin plastic resin from overseas has been significantly cheaper than using recycled plastic here in Australia. But of course, now that the price of that plastic that we're importing has gone up as a result of the fuel shortage, it does make recycled plastic a bit more competitive than what it was before. Not necessarily cheaper, but certainly more competitive. And I think that is causing all of us to take a renewed look at the opportunities that we have around recycled plastic. As I say, both the environmental and the economic benefits that can come from that.
Murray Watt, thank you.
Thanks, Kirsten.